The sun had just started to dip behind the city skyline when I pulled into the wedding hall parking lot. My hands were tight on the steering wheel, a mixture of excitement and unease churning inside me. Today was Olivia's big day, my little girl, the one I had watched grow from a stubborn, curious child into a determined woman. I had imagined this moment 1,000 times, walking her down the aisle, smiling at her, feeling proud. But nothing in my imagination had prepared me for the scene waiting inside. I stepped out of the car, adjusting my tie, and took a deep breath. The hall was buzzing with activity, guests laughing, photographers moving around, the faint scent of flowers and candle wax filling the air. Everything looked beautiful, almost perfect. I smiled softly, expecting my family to greet me warmly. But as I stepped toward the entrance, something felt off. The first odd sign was the seating arrangement. I walked inside, scanning the tables one by one. 150 guests, every seat adorned with a place card, but none of them had my name. My heart sank. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Surely Olivia, my daughter, wouldn't forget me. I found her in the center of the hall, radiant in her wedding dress, laughing with her bridesmaids. I approached quietly, trying not to disturb the moment. "Olivia," I said, my voice calm but tinged with unease, "where should I sit?" Her smile faltered, just slightly. She tilted her head as if remembering something last minute. "Oh, we completely forgot about you, Dad. You can sit there." She pointed to a folding table, shoved awkwardly near the restrooms, isolated from everyone else. For a heartbeat, the world stopped. My mind scrambled. The father of the bride, left out like an afterthought? My chest tightened, a mix of disbelief, hurt, and confusion. I didn't yell, I didn't argue. I just nodded, my face carefully neutral. Pride kept my words in check. I turned and left, my footsteps echoing against the marble floor. I didn't know where I was going, maybe for a walk, maybe just to breathe, but I knew one thing: this wasn't what I had imagined. An hour passed. The hall filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and the music swelling into the evening. I lingered at a quiet park nearby, trying to process the strange emptiness. And then I saw it. A flicker of movement from the hall's windows. A sudden commotion, sharp voices, a crash that sounded like glass shattering. My heart leaped into my throat. Something was happening inside. I didn't know what it was, but I felt it in my bones. This wedding, which was supposed to be the happiest day of my daughter's life, was about to spiral into chaos, and I had no idea if I should run back in or stay away. Weeks before the wedding, the house was filled with a mix of excitement and quiet tension. I watched Olivia from the kitchen doorway as she paced the living room, phone in hand, scrolling through her endless list of plans, color swatches, and seating charts. She was focused on perfection, obsessed with every detail being Instagram ready. But in that focus, she barely noticed me. "Dad, could you help with the flowers?" she asked once, her voice distracted as she flipped through a catalogue. I leaned over the counter, gently adjusting a vase of roses, but she barely looked at me. She was polite, but distant. Something in her eyes suggested she thought she knew better than everyone else, including me. Claire, my wife, watched quietly from the sofa, her hands folded over her lap. She exchanged a glance with me, eyes filled with concern. "I think she's stressed," she whispered. "Just give her space." But the tension in the house wasn't just about Olivia. Ethan, her fiancé, had a subtle way of stirring discomfort. He was polite and charming in front of others, but when he thought no one was watching, I caught him smirking at something I couldn't see, whispering quietly to his mother. There was a coldness there, a sense of calculation, and I didn't like it. Then came the small incidents that seemed insignificant at first, but, in hindsight, were warnings. Invitations went out late. Certain relatives were left off the guest list entirely. Olivia forgot to mention key details to me, like the rehearsal dinner location, the photographer schedule, and eventually, the seating chart. One evening, while helping her assemble favors, I asked her, "Olivia, have you made sure everyone knows where I should sit?" She paused, glancing at me with a nervous smile. "Oh, I didn't think about it. Dad, it's all a bit chaotic. Don't worry, you'll figure it out." I nodded, but inside, unease was growing. There was more than forgetfulness in her tone, a subtle defensiveness, almost like she was hiding something, or maybe she had already decided that my presence wasn't as important as I thought it should be. Then there was Ethan's family. His sister, who I barely knew, had a tendency to throw side glances and quiet comments that made me tighten my jaw. One night, during a small dinner at our house, she whispered to her mother, "He seems out of place, doesn't he?" I felt it then, the first real inkling that this wedding might not be about love alone. There were motives, rivalries, and ambitions layered beneath polite smiles. Olivia's desire for control, Ethan's subtle manipulations, and the silent judgments of extended family were slowly building a storm, and yet none of it could prepare me for the day itself. The small cracks in relationships, the hidden tensions, the subtle disregard for me, they were all tiny sparks. Sparks that, once the wedding began, would ignite into something explosive. As I watched Olivia practicing her walk down the aisle, with the florist adjusting her dress, I tried to tell myself it was nothing, just pre-wedding nerves. But something in the air felt heavy, charged with unspoken conflicts. And deep down, I knew, when the doors opened to that grand hall, the storm I had sensed in whispers and glances would finally break. The day of the wedding finally arrived. The hall gleamed under soft golden lights, flowers lining every corner, and the faint sound of a string quartet warming up in the background. Guests arrived in waves, their chatter and laughter filling the air. But even amid the celebration, something felt off. I stayed outside for a while, unsure if I should go in. My heart ached at the thought of watching my daughter's big day from a distance. When I finally stepped inside, I stayed near the back, unnoticed, my eyes scanning the crowd. Olivia looked stunning. Her dress shimmered, her hair perfectly arranged, but her smile seemed slightly strained, the kind that doesn't quite reach the eyes. Ethan greeted the guests with his usual charm, shaking hands and laughing, but I caught the occasional sharp glance at Olivia, almost like a warning. His family moved with polite smiles, but whispers floated in the air, hinting at hidden judgments and rivalries. I felt a twinge of unease. Something about the way they all interacted made me think that, beneath the surface, this was already a battlefield. The ceremony began. Music swelled as bridesmaids walked down the aisle, followed by Olivia. She held her bouquet tightly, her steps precise, almost rehearsed. I watched her from a distance, pride and sorrow mingling in my chest. She didn't see me, and part of me ached at that. I wanted to be near her, to share a smile, a word, a reassuring touch, but I stayed hidden. Then came the first small mishap. The officiant's microphone sputtered. Cutting through the quiet music, a bridesmaid dropped a bouquet just as Olivia approached the altar, and it rolled across the polished floor. Laughter erupted, quickly swallowed by polite coughing and hushed murmurs. My stomach twisted. These little things, insignificant on their own, felt like tiny warnings, signs that the day wasn't going to go smoothly. I noticed Ethan leaning closer to Olivia, whispering something I couldn't hear. Her brow furrowed ever so slightly, and she nodded, tensing her shoulders. I didn't like it. There was an undercurrent there, a tension that spoke of secrets and unspoken pressure. Guests were smiling, clapping, pretending everything was perfect, but I could see the cracks forming. A distant cousin was arguing quietly with Ethan's mother over seating arrangements, and someone tripped over a loose carpet near the altar. Each small mistake added weight to the atmosphere, a quiet crescendo building beneath the formal celebration. And then something happened that made my heart leap. A loud crash from the reception area, glasses shattering, a chair tipping over echoed through the hall. Heads turned. Guests murmured nervously. Olivia froze mid-step, a flicker of panic crossing her face. Even Ethan's confident smile faltered. I clenched my fists, a mix of fear and anticipation surging through me. Whatever was happening inside, it was more than just a minor accident. This day, meant to be a celebration of love, was beginning to unravel before my eyes. I stayed near the edge of the hall, unsure whether to intervene or let events play out. But one thing was certain. The wedding I had dreamed of attending with pride was no longer what it seemed. The storm I had sensed during the preparations was now stirring, ready to break. The ceremony ended with polite applause, but it sounded thin, forced. Smiles stayed on faces, yet they felt stiff, like masks worn for too long. As guests moved toward the reception area, I sensed the tension growing heavier with every step. Inside the reception hall, the lights were brighter, the music louder, but the joy felt weaker. Olivia sat at the head table beside Ethan, her hands resting tightly in her lap. She laughed when someone spoke to her, but the laugh came late, like she had to remind herself to do it. Ethan leaned close to her more than once, whispering sharply. Each time, Olivia nodded without looking at him. I noticed how her shoulders stayed tense, how her eyes kept drifting toward the exits, as if she wanted to escape her own wedding. Then the problems started piling up. A waiter rushed past, whispering urgently to the wedding planner. The cake was late. A vendor demanded payment that hadn't gone through. The band stopped playing for several minutes, arguing quietly near the stage. Guests began to notice. Murmurs spread like smoke. At one table, Ethan's mother raised her voice. "This should have been handled already," she snapped. At another, relatives argued over seating, pointing fingers and exchanging sharp words. What was meant to be a celebration was turning into confusion. Olivia finally stood up. "Please, everyone, let's just enjoy the night," she said into the microphone. Her voice trembled. The room went quiet, but the calm didn't last. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed near the bar. Glass shattered across the floor. Someone shouted. Chairs scraped back. Panic flickered across faces. I saw Olivia's eyes widen. She looked at Ethan, waiting for answers. Ethan forced a smile and clapped his hands. "It's fine, just a small mistake," he said too quickly. But sweat shone on his forehead. His confidence was cracking. A man in a dark suit pushed his way through the crowd, holding a folder tight against his chest. He spoke urgently to the wedding planner, who shook her head, then pointed toward Ethan. The man hesitated, then nodded. That's when I knew. This wasn't just bad luck. This wasn't stress or nerves. Something had been hidden. Something important. Olivia followed the man with her eyes. Her face drained of color. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. The music stopped again, and this time it didn't start back up. The music had stopped. That was the first thing I noticed when I stepped back into the hall. No laughter, no clinking glasses, just low whispers and stiff faces. The air felt heavy, like everyone was holding their breath at the same time. I stood near the entrance, unnoticed. Then I saw Olivia. She was no longer glowing. Her hands were shaking, her smile gone. Her eyes moved fast across the room, like she was searching for something or someone. Ethan stood beside her, his arm tight around her waist, but his face was pale. The charm he wore so easily had slipped. A man I didn't recognize stood near the microphone. He looked nervous, holding a phone in his hand. The wedding planner whispered urgently to him, but he shook his head. "I'm sorry," the man said suddenly, his voice loud in the silent hall, "but I can't keep this to myself any more." Gasps rippled through the guests. Olivia turned to him. "What are you doing?" she whispered, panic clear in her voice. The man swallowed hard. "I was hired to manage the finances for this wedding. Payments, contracts, records." He raised the phone. "And I found something that doesn't make sense." Ethan stiffened. The man continued, slower now. Large payments were taken out. Money meant for vendors, for staff, for this event. He looked straight at Ethan. The money didn't go to the wedding. The room erupted. Voices clashed. Chairs scraped against the floor. Olivia stared at Ethan like she was seeing him for the first time. "What is he talking about?" she asked, her voice breaking. Ethan laughed once, sharp and forced. "This is ridiculous." But then the man spoke again. "The money went into a private account, an account only Ethan could access." Silence. I felt my chest tighten. Pieces fell into place. The stress, the control, the cold looks from his family. This wasn't just a wedding problem. This was betrayal. Olivia shook her head slowly. "You said everything was handled," she whispered. Ethan's jaw clenched. "I was protecting us." That was when Ethan's sister spoke up from the crowd. "You weren't protecting anyone," she said bitterly. "You were fixing your mess." More whispers. More truths spilling out. Loans, debts, lies hidden behind smiles. Olivia let go of Ethan's arm. She took a step back, tears falling freely now. The dream she built was crumbling in front of everyone. And then she saw me. Our eyes met across the room. Her face changed, not anger, not pride, but regret. Real, painful regret. I didn't move closer. I didn't speak. I just stood there, calm, steady, present. The wedding hall was no longer a place of celebration. It was a place of truth, a place where masks had fallen. And as chaos continued around her, Olivia took one shaky breath and made a choice, one that would change everything from this moment on. But what she was about to do next, no one was ready for that. Olivia stepped forward, her voice shaking but clear. "This wedding is over," she said. The room froze. Guests stared. Ethan tried to speak, but she raised her hand. "No more lies." She turned and looked at me again. Tears streamed down her face. "Dad, I forgot who stood by me when no one else did." I walked toward her slowly. The room was silent. "I didn't come here for revenge," I said softly. "I came because I love you." That was when she broke down, hugging me like she did when she was a child. In that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the guests, not the money, not the ruined wedding. Ethan left without another word. His family followed. The hall emptied, leaving behind flowers, broken glass, and hard truths. Weeks later, Olivia came to my house with no makeup, no pride, just honesty. We talked for hours. She apologized not just for the seat, but for forgetting my worth. Life didn't become perfect, but it became real. Some lessons don't come gently. Some respect is learned the hard way. And sometimes walking away is what saves everyone. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories about family, betrayal, and redemption.